You walk around every single day operating on this quiet, almost invisible assumption about how reality works. We all do it.
Right, it's just human nature.
Yeah, we just assume our eyes are basically biological cameras passively recording this faithful, objective video of the world around us.
And on a much larger scale, we assume that beneath the floorboards of the universe, there just has to be some hidden foundation, some solid, ultimate bedrock holding the whole cosmic structure up.
Right, it's a comforting thought. It feels stable.
Exactly. It is basically the ultimate safety net for human anxiety. I mean, the idea that no matter how chaotic things get on the surface, socially or physically, there is a master frame.
A bottom layer of absolute truth.
Keeping the cosmos intact, whether that's microscopic billiard balls of matter or, a divine architecture.
But what if you were to discover that the safety net is a complete illusion? Like, what if the universe doesn't actually have a hidden foundation at all?
Which is a pretty terrifying thought for a lot of people.
It really is. And what if your brain isn't a passive camera, but essentially a highly motivated editor, just aggressively cutting and pasting your reality to keep you alive?
That is the deeply unsettling yet strangely liberating premise we are exploring today.
Welcome to a new deep dive into the source material. Today, we are immersing ourselves in a truly fascinating 2026 book titled Radical Empiricism, William James and the Boundary. No inquiry escapes. It's by the philosopher Boris Kriger.
And the mission for you today is to follow Kriger as he takes a century-old, widely misunderstood philosophical idea, completely rescues it, rigorously corrects its flaws, and radically expands it.
Yeah, he's using this updated philosophy to explain everything from the daily hypocrisies of your own memory all the way to the extreme physics happening inside a black hole.
And we really need to highlight what makes Boris Kriger's approach so original here. I mean, Kriger is a philosopher of interdisciplinarity.
He isn't just dusting off a late 19th century text for some dry academic exercise.
Exactly. He is actively bridging the gap between historical philosophy, cutting-edge modern neuroscience, and quantum cosmology.
He's taking ideas that were locked away in a theoretical cage and testing them against the literal physical structure of the cosmos.
It's an entirely new synthesis. But if we are going to understand how Kriger gets to black holes and the editing software of the human brain, we have to establish the foundation he's building on.
Well, rather the lack of a foundation. We need to look at an idea that was so deceptively simple, the scientific community of the time essentially just walked right past it.
Right, we are talking about William James. Over a century ago, James was an absolute giant of American psychology and philosophy.
Yet, when he presented his most profound idea, what he called radical empiricism, his peers essentially patted him on the head, filed his work under the dismissive label of vague, and went back to their own theories.
Which is such an ironic fate for a philosopher of his stature,
It really is. Why was his work sidelined as vague in the first place?
Well, it primarily came down to aesthetics and language. The reigning trend in philosophy at the time was cold, mathematical logic. The academic establishment valued rigid, perfectly precise logical scaffolding above all else.
But James wrote warmly, right? He wrote about the flow and the fringe of lived human experience.
Yes, he argued, quite forcefully actually, that you cannot describe the warmth and messiness of human experience using the frozen, static vocabulary of pure logic without killing the very thing you're trying to describe.
So his peers mistook his plain, experiential language for a lack of intellectual rigor. Okay, let's unpack this. If I map this out, James was essentially saying there is nothing hidden behind our experience.
No invisible metaphysical substance propping up the coffee cup on your desk from below.
Right, and no cosmic mind holding the universe together from above. He insisted that the glue holding the world together is already right there in front of us.
The connections between things are actually experienced.
Exactly. If I play a three-note melody for you, the music isn't in the first note, and it isn't in the second note.
The music isn't located in any single isolated sound.
The music is the literal, audible tension between the notes. It's in the way the first note leans toward the second.
You don't pause, do a mathematical calculation to figure out that leaning after the fact, and then realize it's a song.
No, you actually hear that relation in real time. The relation is real. It is a given part of the world.
And establishing that relations are real put James in a massive two-front war against the heavyweights of Western thought.
Yeah, on one side you had the skeptic David Hume. Hume looked at the world and argued it is just a heap of disconnected dots.
Right, Hume said we never actually see cause and effect. Our minds just invent the connection out of mere habit.
Like flipping through a flip book and your brain pretending the little stick figure is actually moving, even though it's just a series of static, disconnected images.
That perfectly captures Hume's view. So that was the first front. On the other front, you had James's close friend and professional rival, Josiah Royce.
And Royce represented absolute idealism.
Right. Yes, and Royce actually agreed with Hume that ordinary human experience doesn't contain its own connections. But, Royce argued, the world does hold together.
Because the entire universe is a single unified thought inside the mind of God, according to Royce.
Exactly. So the academic binary was set. Either the world is a broken heap of disconnected dots, or it's held together by a cosmic entity completely outside of your ability to experience it.
And James steps between them and says they're both missing what is right in front of them. The world holds itself together with the joints and tensions we actively feel.
Like when you push a heavy wooden door, you feel the effort and the resistance. The universe is self-supporting.
Which is where Kriger brings in the famous philosophical anecdote of turtles all the way down.
Oh, I love this story. A scientist gives a lecture on astronomy, and an old woman stands up and tells him he's wrong.
She says the world actually rests on the back of a giant turtle. And the scientist condescendingly asks, well, what does the turtle stand on?
She says, another turtle. And when he presses her again, demanding a final foundation, she smiles and says, you're very clever, young man. But it's turtles all the way down.
It's usually told as a joke about infinite regression. But Kriger argues the real mistake in the story isn't the turtles.
No, the real mistake is the deep, unquestioned reflex in Western thought to demand a foundation in the first place.
We just automatically assume there must be a bottom turtle, a final floor of reality.
But James argues there is no bottom turtle, not because the stack goes on forever, but because the turtles aren't stacked vertically at all.
They are holding hands in a ring. It's like a Roman stone arch.
That's a great way to picture it.
It carries immense weight, but there is no central pillar underneath holding it up. The stones are wedge-shaped, and they stand precisely because they are all leaning inward, falling against each other.
The leaning is the load-bearing. It's a completely self-supporting universe.
But if James was right that relations are real and the universe holds itself together, Kriger identifies one massive, fundamental error in James's original theory.
Yeah, James trusted our biological experience way too much.
Right. James assumed that because we are in direct contact with the world, our experience delivers the world to us honestly. He thought the data we receive is innocent.
But we have over a century of neuroscience since James died, and it proves that the brain does not passively receive reality. It actively manufactures it.
And this is Kriger's massive, original correction to radical empiricism. The given is not innocent.
Human perception isn't a clear glass window onto the objective world. It is the active maintenance of a world.
Your brain is editing reality constantly, trimming away data just to keep you functional.
I know anyone who has taken a psych class is familiar with the invisible gorilla experiment.
Oh yeah, where people are so focused on counting basketball passes in a video that half of them don't even see a person in a gorilla suit walk right through the game.
We all know the trick. But Kriger looks at why our brains do this. It isn't a glitch.
No, it is a highly evolved feature. Attention is the chief editor of your maintained world.
A nervous system did not evolve to show you the absolute objective truth of the universe. It evolved to show you a stable, navigable room you can survive in.
Right. A riot of shifting light, irrelevant background movement, and overwhelming data is an environment a biological creature dies inside.
So the brain smooths things out, it predicts what should be there, and discards the rest.
And what's truly terrifying is when Kriger applies this exact survival mechanism to how we remember our own lives.
He calls human memory a cooperative forgery.
Memory isn't deceiving you out of malice. It is quietly, continuously smoothing over the contradictions of your past to maintain a coherent sense of self in the present.
It quietly edits out the times you were a massive hypocrite, or subtly revises your old, embarrassing opinions to perfectly match your current ones.
Wait, I need to stop and challenge this because you're glossing over the forgery part.
Oh, okay. Let's hear it.
If my brain is essentially acting as a relentless PR firm for my ego, actively deleting my hypocrisies to keep me sane, how can I trust literally any conclusion I draw about the world?
That is the core dilemma, isn't it?
I mean, if my daily perception is aggressively edited and my memory is a forgery, aren't we just trapped in a virtual reality simulation? Doesn't this completely validate the skeptics James was trying to fight?
This raises an important question. And it's a conceptual trap that many modern thinkers actually fall into.
That we're just brains in vats.
Exactly. If the mind edits, we must be cut off from the real world. But Kriger provides a brilliant navigational tool out of this trap.
Which is?
He uses the analogy of a funhouse mirror. You are not trapped behind a veil, completely cut off from the physical universe. You are in direct, unbroken contact with it. But it is bent contact.
I like that phrasing, bent contact.
When you stand in front of a funhouse mirror, the image you see is heavily distorted, stretched, and manipulated.
But it is still a distorted image of the real you, created by real light bouncing off a real physical body.
We are in a genuine embrace with the real world, but the very act of that embrace deforms what it holds based on the shape of our sensory organs.
So, if the human brain is hardwired to edit out inconsistencies and compute its own coherence just to survive, Kriger asks a deeply unsettling question.
What if matter itself is doing the exact same thing?
Right, what if the universe isn't just a container for objects, but a self-correcting system?
This is where Kriger leaves psychology behind and makes his most audacious move. He introduces his cosmological program, which he calls the alpha LGQV framework.
Or the information substrate view.
Yes.
Right? Hold on. If we are scaling this up to astrophysics, what do those letters actually stand for? Alpha LGQV.
In Krieger's formal mathematics, the acronym represents the integration of fundamental physical limits. Alpha representing the fine structure constant bounding the limits of length, gravity, quantum states, and velocity.
Okay, but you don't need the calculus to understand the mechanism.
No. The core mechanism is the information substrate view. Kriger is taking the psychological drive for coherence and applying it to physics.
He argues that the universe computes its own structural coherence without a designer.
He uses the analogy of a hanging chain. If you hold a chain loosely between your two hands, it naturally forms a perfect, mathematically beautiful swoop.
A catenary curve. But the chain isn't doing math. There is no central architect telling the chain what shape to take.
Every individual link simply pulls on its immediate neighbors, negotiating the tension until they all settle into a physical balance.
Exactly. In Krieger's framework, persistence equals self-consistency. Things that are physically or mathematically inconsistent tear themselves apart over time.
And things that are consistent persist. So the universe is constantly sorting itself through the mere passage of time and physical interaction toward coherence.
Here's where it gets really interesting. This exact mechanism explains the expansion of the universe.
Usually when we read about astrophysics, we hear that the universe is expanding because some mysterious, invisible, dark energy is aggressively pushing space apart from the outside.
But Kriger views it entirely differently. He uses the analogy of a spinning figure skater to explain the mechanism of this expansion.
When a figure skater is spinning on the ice with their arms pulled tightly into their chest, they rotate incredibly fast.
When they extend their arms outward, their spin slows down. The total energy of that turning motion is conserved. It just redistributes into a wider physical shape.
And Kriger argues that the early universe had an intrinsic spin, a primordial rotational tension.
So the expansion of the universe isn't being pushed by a hidden dark energy force. It is the unwinding of that initial tension.
As the universe seeks a lower energy, more coherent state, that rotational tension relaxes.
Just as the skater's arms move outward, the spatial dimensions of the universe expand outward to conserve that turning. It's geometry relaxing.
And Kriger pushes this framework to the absolute extreme limit of physics, the center of a black hole.
Right, because under standard physical equations, if you track gravity into the center of a black hole, the math eventually breaks down completely.
It predicts a singularity, an infinitely dense point where all description fails.
It's essentially the universe throwing a fatal divide by zero error.
But Kriger proposes a radical alternative, which he defines as the Kriger limit.
If the fundamental principle of the universe is that reality always seeks a self-consistent, persisting form, then an actual infinity is impossible.
Infinite density is an infinite informational contradiction, and reality abhors a contradiction.
So Kriger theorizes a hard physical ceiling on density. Matter cannot compress infinitely because the informational structure just won't allow it.
Black holes do not contain singularities. They hit a hard floor, forming a persistent core of maximum density that simply refuses to collapse further.
So whether we are looking deep into the center of a black hole or turning inward and looking deep into the human mind trying to locate the self, Kriger points out that we hit the exact same structural wall.
This is the ultimate synthesis of Krieger's entire philosophy. He calls this wall the role attribution boundary.
To explain this, Kriger paints a brilliant metaphor of an ancient, sprawling royal court.
The courtiers, the elaborate ceremonies, the architecture of the palace, everything is organized perfectly around a single throne in the center of the room.
The role of the throne is completely real. It organizes the behavior of the entire civilization.
But if you walk up to the throne, it is completely empty.
There is no king. There is no occupant.
It's a profound way to understand our limits, and Kriger maps this empty throne onto everything.
Take human consciousness. We constantly experience the role of knowing.
But if you try to turn your attention inward to catch the watcher inside your head, the thing doing the knowing, you can never actually find it.
The seeing eye cannot see itself. Consciousness is a very real role, but it has no occupant you can isolate.
It's the exact same with matter. For centuries, physics has been looking for the ultimate, tiny, solid billiard ball of physical substance.
But when you zoom in on an electron, you don't find a tiny sphere of stuff. You just find patterns of relations like mass, charge, spin.
Matter is a role with no hidden substance occupying it.
And the black hole has a center role, but no physical description can occupy it.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Kriger isn't the only one who arrived at this conclusion.
Right, he brings in a third witness to prove this isn't just some philosophical trick.
The physicist Stefano Profumo, working independently in pure foundational quantum physics, hit this exact same boundary.
Profumo developed what is called informational structural realism.
Without getting bogged down in the quantum math, Profumo concluded that reality bottoms out entirely in structure and relations.
The relations are the reality. There's no exhibitable substance beneath the structure.
Two completely different roads, philosophy of the mind and quantum physics, colliding at the exact same wall, the empty throne.
So what does this all mean for us?
What do you mean?
Well, if we accept Krieger's premise that the universe has no master frame, no bottom turtle, and we accept that our individual biological minds are maintaining bent, edited versions of reality, how do we actually live together?
That is where Kriger grounds his cosmic theories in societal reality.
If every human mind maintains its own world, heavily edited by its own loyalties and survival needs, we are a civilization of irreconcilable minds.
He illustrates this with a famous psychology study involving a football game.
Researchers showed fans of rival college teams the exact same film of a controversial football game.
And the fans didn't just disagree on the referee's calls, they literally perceived different fouls.
Their maintained worlds actively edited the visual footage in real time to protect their tribal loyalty.
Which implies something massive about our political and social divides.
The other side isn't always lying, and they aren't necessarily stupid.
No, they are genuinely, biologically perceiving a different reality.
Under Krieger's framework, because there is no master frame, no final objective perspective from nowhere, tyranny and dogmatism are not just moral failings.
Kriger posits they are metaphysical errors. The tyrant is someone who claims to sit on the empty throne.
And the physical structure of the universe simply forbids it.
But Kriger doesn't leave us in a state of lazy relativism where everyone has their own truth and nothing matters.
If our brains are flawed editors, we have to actively build what he calls shared instruments to correct our collective biological blindness.
Precisely. If we are pilots flying an aircraft through a dense cloud, and our inner ear is lying to us about which way is up, we cannot trust our biological feeling.
They will crash the plane. We have to build altimeters, and we have to train ourselves to trust the instruments over our own lying senses.
Kriger details some incredible real-world examples of how we do this. He looks at the Ledger newsroom.
Their readership was completely fractured into different maintained worlds.
So instead of trying to verbally argue people out of their deeply held realities, the newsroom built an instrument.
They rigorously separated fact from opinion, published the raw, transparent source footage of events, and forced people to look at the primary evidence.
They slowly rebuilt a shared ground of reality. He also highlights an intelligence cell that suffered a massive strategic failure due to groupthink.
Their shared expertise had essentially become a shared, mutually reinforced blind spot.
To fix it, they didn't just ask people to be more open-minded, they built an instrument.
They mandated a devil's advocate role, a strict structural requirement for dissent.
They took the burden off the individual's courage and built forced disagreement into the walls of the organization to make sure the consensus was constantly challenged.
It is entirely about recognizing that human beings are fundamentally flawed editors, and we have to design external systems that save us from our own biology.
Krieger's ultimate achievement in this book is taking the abstract concept of radical empiricism and forging it into a lived practice.
He rescues William James from academic obscurity, brutally strips away his innocence regarding human perception, and scales the drive for coherence up to the expansion of space and the hearts of black holes.
And maps the final boundary of human inquiry.
It has been an absolute journey trying to map this out.
It really has.
From the audible tension between musical notes to the stone arch of a self-supporting universe, to the funhouse mirror of our manipulated memories, all the way down to the empty throne at the very bottom of reality.
And importantly, Krieger leaves us with a universe that is genuinely open.
It is still in the making, bounded by a limit that doesn't defeat human curiosity, but guarantees there will always be more structure to discover.
Which brings us to one final, deeply profound realization drawn from Krieger's conclusion.
You are not just a detached observer studying a foreign universe. You are the universe.
You are a small, biologically self-maintaining region of the cosmos.
So when you push your scientific or philosophical inquiry to the absolute limit, and you finally hit that uncrossable boundary, the empty throne, it is simply the universe turning its attention back upon itself.
And meeting its own edge, the structure attempting to comprehend the structure.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. Stay curious, build good instruments, and embrace an unfinished world.